Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Scholar. Tonight's journey takes us into the vastness of space, to the tranquil and varied world of solar system moons. Far beyond our own familiar skies, a multitude of silent guardians drift through the unending dark, tethered by gravity to their parent planets in a timeless, majestic dance. These celestial attendants, ranging from tiny, irregularly shaped rocks captured by immense forces to massive, spherical worlds with their own complex geologies and hidden oceans, offer a glimpse into the deepest history of our cosmic neighborhood. They are the quiet observers of the solar system, bearing the ancient scars of impacts from eons past, their icy surfaces and dusty plains preserving the memories of a chaotic youth that has long since settled into a serene and steady rhythm. As we travel together in our minds to these distant reaches, we leave behind the noise and hurry of our daily lives, trading it for the profound stillness of the void and the slow, deliberate orbits of these varied moons. From the volcanic fires of Io that burn in silence to the frozen, enigmatic methane lakes of Titan, each moon tells a unique story of adaptation and endurance against the grand backdrop of deep space. Tonight, we shall drift among them, not as hurried explorers seeking data, but as quiet passengers observing their enduring beauty, letting their silent, steady presence guide us toward a place of deep and restful slumber. If you enjoy these quiet explorations, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps other curious minds find a place to rest. But for now, get comfortable. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let's begin. Our own moon was likely born from a momentous ancient meeting between the young Earth and another wandering world. Long before humanity looked up to admire its gentle light, the early solar system was a crowded and somewhat chaotic dance floor, where forming planets often cross paths in dramatic fashion. In this distant, formative epoch, it is believed that a Mars-sized body, affectionately known to astronomers as Theia, found itself on intersecting courses with our nascent home, leading to a colossal merging of materials that forever changed both worlds. This grand cosmic embrace did not result in destruction, but rather creation, as the vast clouds of molten debris ejected from the encounter slowly coalesced in Earth's orbit, guided by gravity's patient hand into a spherical companion. Over eons, this glowing ember cooled into the silvery guardian we know today, a silent partner that has steadied Earth's wobbling axis and guided the rhythmic tides of our oceans since the very dawn of life, proving that even the most dramatic beginnings can settle into the most peaceful of eternal companionships. Mars possesses two tiny, lumpy moons that may be ancient wanderers adopted by the red planet's gravity eons ago. Unlike our own majestic and spherical moon, Phobos and Deimos are small, irregularly shaped worlds, resembling heavily cratered asteroids more than typical planetary satellites. They drift through the Martian sky like silent, ancient sentinels, their heavily pockmarked surfaces telling stories of a long journey before they found their current home. Many scientists suspect that these two celestial travelers may have originated in the asteroid belt, drifting too close to Mars during a forgotten epoch and finding themselves ensnared by its gravitational embrace, destined to circle the rusty world forever. They now serve as constant, quiet companions to the lonely desert planet below, their erratic shapes casting fleeting, strange shadows across the dusty Martian plains, reminding us that the solar system is a place where drifting souls can sometimes find a permanent anchor in the vastness of the dark. Jupiter's moon Io is the most volcanically active body in the solar system, its surface constantly renewed by internal fire. While many moons are frozen and still, locked in a deep cryosleep, Io is vibrantly alive with geological activity, driven by a relentless gravitational tug-of-war. Caught between the immense, overwhelming mass of Jupiter and the rhythmic orbital pull of its sister moons Europa and Ganymede, Io's rocky interior is constantly stretched and squeezed, much like a piece of clay being worked in warm hands. This ceaseless tidal friction generates intense heat within its heart, which escapes as spectacular plumes of sulfur and molten rock that reach high into the vacuum of space before raining back down in colorful deposits. Far from being a violent wasteland, this constant resurfacing makes Io a strangely beautiful and ever-changing world of vivid yellows, reds, and oranges, a testament to the incredible, unseen energies that silently flow through the very fabric of our celestial neighborhood. Beneath the frozen, icy shell of Europa lies a vast, hidden ocean that may contain more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. From the outside, Europa appears as a perfectly smooth, brilliant white billiard ball of ice, crisscrossed by a complex network of reddish fractures that look like delicate veins on a grand cosmic scale. These sprawling lineaments are the telltale signs of a dynamic world beneath, where the thick, solid crust floats atop a deep, warm, global sea, kept liquid by the same tidal energies that heat its neighbor Io. In the utter darkness of this subterranean ocean, shielded from the harsh radiation of space by miles of hard ice, enormous pressures and gentle heating might create an environment stable for eons. It is a profound thought that one of the most promising abodes for life beyond Earth might be hidden away in the quiet dark, safely tucked beneath a protective blanket of eternal frost, waiting patiently for us to one day peek beneath the veil. Ganymede is not only the largest moon in our solar system, but it is also the only one known to possess its own magnetic field. Surpassing even the planet Mercury in size, Ganymede is a true titan among moons, a world that could almost have been a planet had it not been destined to orbit the giant Jupiter. Deep within its varied interior, likely possessing a molten iron core that still churns with ancient heat, a dynamo effect generates a magnetic bubble that surrounds the moon, a rare shield against the intense radiation environment of its parent planet. This invisible, protective sphere stands as a silent testament to Ganymede's complex internal life, proving that even moons can harbor the dynamic hearts of planets. It orbits in grand majesty, a king among satellites, carrying its own hidden shield as it navigates the energetic currents of the Jovian system, a unique and resilient traveler in the cold outer reaches. Callisto is often called the most heavily cratered object in the solar system, its surface a perfectly preserved record of ancient history. While other worlds have smoothed over their pasts with volcanic flows or shifting icy tectonic plates, Callisto has remained geologically quiet for nearly 4 billion years, acting as a faithful chronicler of the solar system's earliest days. Every stray comet and wandering asteroid that has ever touched its surface since their heavy bombardment of the early eons has left a permanent mark, creating a landscape completely saturated with overlapping impact scars. It is a world of profound stillness, where nothing changes but the slow accumulation of cosmic dust, holding onto its memories with perfect clarity. To look upon Callisto is to look directly into the deep abyss of time itself, seeing the frozen, unaltered face of the primordial solar system staring back at us in quiet, icy serenity. Saturn's largest moon, Titan, is wrapped in a thick golden-orange atmosphere that is denser than Earth's. For centuries, Titan was just a mysterious point of light, its true nature completely hidden by an impenetrable haze that refused to reveal the secrets below. This massive moon is unique in our solar system, the only one to have held onto a substantial atmosphere, a rich blanket of nitrogen and methane that insulates its surface in a perpetual hazy twilight. Beneath these opaque clouds lies a world eerily similar yet alien to our own, with rolling dunes made of hydrocarbon grains and stable lakes of liquid methane and ethane pooling near its poles. It is a quiet, frigid mirror of early Earth, frozen in a state of deep freeze preservation, where gentle alien rains fall in slow motion under lighter gravity, sculpting a landscape that waits in eternal, hazy slumber. Tiny Enceladus is a generous moon, constantly spraying jets of icy particles into space that form one of Saturn's grand rings. Despite its small size, this brilliant snowy white moon is incredibly active, harboring a global subsurface ocean, with fractures near its south pole that vent continuously into the void. Through deep fissures affectionately known as tiger stripes, geysers of water vapor and ice grains shoot silently upward, escaping the moon's weak gravity to drift into orbit around Saturn. These myriad glittering crystals spread out to create the ethereal, diffuse E-ring of Saturn, meaning Enceladus is slowly and peacefully sharing its very essence with its parent planet. It is a beautiful example of cosmic giving, a tiny moon that doesn't just passively orbit, but actively contributes to the majestic beauty of the grand Saturnian system, painting a ring of ice across the dark canvas of space. Mimas carries a gargantuan impact crater named Herschel that makes it resemble a giant, silent eye staring out from Saturn's orbit. At some point in its distant past, Mimas survived a colossal collision that was nearly powerful enough to shatter the small icy moon entirely. The resulting scar is a crater so large it spans nearly a third of the moon's diameter, with towering walls and a central mountain peak that rivals the highest mountains on Earth. Yet Mimas endured this cataclysm, its gravity holding its fractured icy body together to continue its endless journey. Today, that great crater stands as a monument to resilience, a silent, unblinking eye that has watched over the Saturnian system for billions of years, a testament to the incredible durability of these small, frozen worlds in the face of immense cosmic forces. Iapetus is a world of stark dualities, with one hemisphere as bright as freshly fallen snow, and the other as dark as charcoal. This strange two-toned appearance has puzzled astronomers since it was first glimpsed through early telescopes, appearing and disappearing as it rotated its dark side toward Earth. As Iapetus travels its distant, lonely path far from Saturn, its leading hemisphere sweeps up dark, dusty material, drifting through space, while ice preferentially migrates to the trailing side, creating this dramatic yin-yang pattern over millions of years. It is a moon that perfectly embodies balance, forever divided between light and shadow, drifting through the outer dark like a silent, monochrome art piece, slowly painted by the very dust of the cosmos it travels through. Uranus's moon, Miranda, possesses one of the most strangely jumbled and varied landscapes ever seen, as if several different worlds were pieced together. This small, icy satellite looks as though it was once broken apart by a massive primordial impact, and then loosely reassembled by gravity in a chaotic, haphazard fashion. It features giant canyons that are 12 times deeper than the Grand Canyon, alongside strange, terraced layers and smooth, rolling plains that abut violently fractured cliffs. It is a geological patchwork quilt, a frozen monument to a chaotic past that has long since settled into absolute stillness. Miranda's beautiful, broken face reminds us that even after the most dramatic upheavals, peace eventually returns, leaving behind a landscape of fierce and unique beauty that orbits quietly in the cold darkness near the edge of our system. Neptune's giant moon Triton orbits in the opposite direction to the planet's rotation, a sign that it was likely captured from the deep outer void. Unlike almost every other large moon that formed alongside its parent planet, Triton is believed to be a refugee from the Kuiper Belt, a Pluto-like world that wandered too close to Neptune eons ago. In a grand gravitational ballet, it was ensnared by the blue ice giant, forced into a retrograde orbit that it has followed ever since. It is a rebellious spirit slowly being tamed, a magnificent icy world with nitrogen geysers that now faithfully circles a master it was never born to serve. Its backward path is a lingering memory of its former freedom, a silent act of cosmic defiance that will continue for billions of years before it eventually, inevitably, spirals inward to become one with Neptune's majestic rings. Pluto and its largest moon, Charon, are locked in a perpetual face-to-face dance, always showing the same side to one another. Most moons are tidally locked to their planets, like our own moon is to Earth. But Pluto and Charon have achieved a rare state of double tidal locking. They are so close in size that they orbit a common center of gravity in the empty space between them, effectively acting as a binary dwarf planet system. If you stood on one, the other would hang motionless in the sky, a gigantic silent companion that never rises or sets, just watches eternally. It is perhaps the most intimate embrace in the solar system. Two icy worlds that have ceased all independent rotation to spend eternity staring only at each other in the dim light of the distant sun. Saturn's small moon Hyperion tumbles chaotically through space rather than spinning on a steady axis. Because of its odd, potato-like shape and the competing gravitational pulls from Saturn and the massive moon Titan, Hyperion does not have a predictable day or night. If you lived on its spongy, highly cratered surface, the sun might rise in the east one day, the north the next, or perhaps it might not set at all for weeks. It is a free spirit among the regimented march of other moons, tumbling happily and unpredictably through the void. In a universe governed by precise clockwork laws, Hyperion is a delightful anomaly of pure chaos, a wandering acrobat that refuses to settle down, turning somersaults forever in the grand emptiness of space. Dactyl was the first moon ever discovered orbiting an asteroid, proving that even small wanderers can have companions. For a long time, it was assumed that only massive planets had enough gravity to hold onto moons, until the tiny speck of Dactyl was seen orbiting the asteroid Ida. This discovery fundamentally changed our understanding of the solar system, revealing it to be a place where companionship is common at every scale. Dactyl is less than a mile across, a tiny, quiet rock that has found a partner in the vastness of the asteroid belt. It is a comforting thought that even the lonely, drifting rocks of the void often travel in pairs, small families of stone moving together through the infinite black, bound to one another by the gentle, invisible tether of their own meager gravity. Pan is a tiny moon that acts as a shepherd, keeping the Encke gap in Saturn's rings open and clear. This small, walnut-shaped moon orbits right in the middle of Saturn's magnificent, expansive A ring, clearing a path for itself as it travels. Its gravity gently nudges any wayward ring particles back into line, either pushing them ahead or pulling them behind, maintaining a pristine dark lane in the brilliant disk of ice. It is a diligent cosmic gardener, tirelessly working to maintain order in the grand design of Saturn's rings. Pan's endless silent work ensures the complex beauty of the rings remains sharp and defined, a tiny, unseen architect responsible for one of the most striking features in our celestial neighborhood. Atlas looks remarkably like a classic flying saucer, with a large, smooth bulge around its equator. This unusual shape is not due to alien design, but rather the gentle accumulation of ultrafine ring dust over millions of years. As Atlas orbits near the edge of Saturn's main rings, its weak gravity pulls in tiny, icy particles that pile up softly on its middle, building a tall, fragile ridge that gives it its distinctive, flattened appearance. It is a moon that is slowly wearing its environment, dressed in a skirt made of the very rings it orbits near. Atlas is a beautiful example of how low-gravity worlds can be gently sculpted by the softest touches of dust over deep time, growing slowly in the silence of space. Nereid possesses one of the most eccentric and elongated orbits of any moon in the solar system. This distant attendant of Neptune takes a wild, looping path that carries it millions of miles away from the planet before swinging back in relatively close. Its journey is so long and lonely that it takes nearly an entire Earth year to complete just one circuit around Neptune. Nereid is the ultimate long-distance traveler, a wanderer that spends most of its time in the cold, dark reaches far from its parent, only visiting briefly before heading back out into the solitude. It reminds us of the incredible reach of gravity, a tenuous, unbreakable thread that can hold on to even the most distant and adventurous of celestial children. Europa's icy surface is incredibly young in cosmic terms, constantly refreshing itself and erasing old scars. While many moons bear the craters of billions of years, Europa's face is almost completely free of them, indicating that its surface is geologically active and frequently renewed. Whether through slushy ice erupting from below or the slow creeping movement of glaciers across its shell, the moon is constantly wiping its slate clean. It is a world in a state of perpetual rejuvenation, refusing to grow old, always presenting a fresh, bright face to the universe. This enduring youthfulness is a hint at the vibrant energy that hums beneath the ice, a silent promise that even in the coldest reaches of space, a world can remain dynamic and alive. Titan is the only other world known to have a liquid cycle like Earth's, with clouds, rain, and rivers, though not of water. On this frigid moon, temperatures are so low that ordinary water is frozen as hard as granite, but methane and ethane exist as liquids. These hydrocarbons evaporate from vast lakes to form thick, slow-moving clouds that eventually drift over the landscape and release gentle, alien downpours. These rains carve branching river channels into the icy bedrock, flowing back down to gigantic polar seas in a strangely familiar cycle. It is a mesmerizing echo of our own home, a hauntingly beautiful shadow world where the same fundamental rhythms of nature play out in a completely different chemical key, under a hazy orange sky that never clears. We only ever see one face of our own moon, a phenomenon born from eons of gravitational negotiation with the Earth. In the earliest days of their partnership, the moon likely spun much faster, showing all of its varied sides to the young Earth below. However, the immense, persistent tug of our planet's gravity raise slight bulges in the moon's rocky body, acting like a gentle break that slowly, over millions of years, eroded its rotational energy until it reached a perfect equilibrium. Now, it turns exactly once on its own axis for every single orbit it completes around us, a condition known as tidal locking, which is a common fate for many moons in our solar system. This synchronized dance means that one hemisphere is forever turned toward us, a familiar friend watching over our nights, while the far side remains eternally averted, gazing out into the undisturbed depths of the cosmos, a secret face that only daring robotic explorers and a handful of brave astronauts have ever seen directly. The solid ground of Jupiter's moon Io rises and falls by as much as 100 meters every single day, like a fiercely breathing chest. While we on Earth are used to the gentle, watery tides of our oceans rising a few feet due to lunar influence, the tides on Io are of solid rock and are vastly more extreme. The colossal gravity of nearby Jupiter, combined with the rhythmic tugs from its sibling moons Europa and Ganymede, forces Io into a slightly eccentric orbit that continuously flexes its entire lithosphere. This relentless rhythmic squeezing creates undulations in the supposedly solid crust that are as high as a 30-story skyscraper, a daily reshaping of the landscape that generates the incredible internal friction powering its endless volcanism. It is a world that is never still, constantly kneading itself in a massive silent display of gravitational power, proving that rock can be just as fluid and dynamic as water when subjected to the immense forces of giant planets. Saturn's moon Iapetus is encircled by a perfectly placed, towering ridge of mountains that runs exactly along its equator, making it look like a giant cosmic walnut. This strange feature is unique in the solar system, a continuous chain of peaks that stands taller than Mount Everest and stretches almost entirely around the moon's midsection. How it formed remains a wonderful mystery to planetary scientists. Perhaps it is the remnant of an ancient ring system that once circled Iapetus itself before slowly collapsing onto the surface. Or perhaps the moon was once spinning so fast in its molten youth that it bulged outward before freezing in place. Whatever its origin, this immense silent spine of rock divides the moon into two perfect hemispheres, adding another layer of strangeness to an already mysterious two-toned world that drifts alone in the distant reaches of the Saturnian system, guarding its secrets in the cold dark. Uranus boasts a diverse family of 27 known moons, nearly all of which are named after characters from the works of William Shakespeare and Alexander Pope, while the rest of the solar system draws its nomenclature largely from ancient Greek and Roman mythology. The Uranian system is a dedicated cosmic stage for literary figures. From the major moons like Titania, Oberon, and Miranda, characters from A Midsummer Night's Dream and The Tempest, to tiny, distant attendants like Cupid and Puck, these worlds form a grand celestial theatre company that endlessly circles the tilted aquamarine planet. It is a beautiful nod to human creativity, where the timeless dramas of Earth's greatest poets are immortalized in ice and rock, their varied personalities playing out a silent, eternal performance in the dim reaches of the outer solar system, far from the warm lights of the inner planets. Neptune's massive moon Triton is slowly spiraling inward and is destined to one day be transformed into a spectacular ring system. Because Triton orbits against the rotation of Neptune, tidal forces are gradually stealing its orbital energy, drawing it inexorably closer to the looming blue giant it circles. In the very distant future, billions of years from now, it will cross a gravitational threshold known as the Roche limit, where Neptune's immense gravity will overcome the forces holding the Moon together. Instead of a violent collision, Triton will likely be gently pulled apart, its icy body dissolved into trillions of glittering fragments that will form a magnificent, expansive new ring around Neptune, perhaps rivaling even Saturn's in glory. It is not an end, but a beautiful metamorphosis, a promise that the grand structures of our solar system are still evolving, slowly reshaping themselves into new forms of majestic beauty over timescales we can scarcely imagine. Phobos, the larger moon of Mars, orbits so close to its planet that it rises and sets twice every single Martian day, while our own moon takes a leisurely month to complete its journey across our sky. Phobos is in a desperate hurry, whipping around the red planet in just under 8 hours. This incredibly tight orbit means that if you were standing on the dusty surface of Mars, you would see this lumpy potato-shaped moon rise in the west, race across the hazy pink sky in just 4 hours, and set in the east, only to do it all over again later that same day. It is a frantic, fleeting companion, skimming precariously close to the Martian atmosphere, a silent sprinter that adds a dynamic, rapidly changing element to the otherwise still and quiet vistas of the Martian deserts. Pluto's moon Charon has a distinct reddish cap at its north pole, affectionately dubbed Mordor Macula, which is likely painted by Pluto's own escaping atmosphere. Pluto is so small and its gravity so weak that it cannot hold on to all of its thin nitrogen and methane atmosphere, which slowly leaks away into space. Its giant companion, Charon, orbits close enough to catch some of these escaping gases, which then freeze solid onto its incredibly cold winter pole. Over centuries, energetic ultraviolet light from the distant sun slowly transforms these frozen gases into complex reddish organic compounds called tholins, effectively staining the polar ice cap a deep, rusty crimson. It is a remarkably subtle form of interplanetary artistry, where one world slowly paints a permanent portrait onto its partner, using nothing but drifting ghosts of gas and the gentle, persistent touch of distant starlight. Saturn's moon Mimas, when viewed in thermal imaging, looks remarkably like a giant Pac-Man character, while visible light shows a heavily cratered, icy grey world. Heat maps reveal a strange V-shaped pattern of warmer regions on its leading side, looking exactly like the iconic open mouth of the classic video game character, seemingly ready to gobble up whatever lies ahead in its orbit. This strange thermal footprint is likely caused by differences in the texture of the surface ice. Old, dense snow retains heat differently than fresh, fluffy powder that might have recently fallen back from E-ring deposits. It is a delightful, accidental bit of cosmic whimsy, a hidden image that was waiting silently in the dark for decades until we finally had the right eyes to see the playful patterns that nature sometimes sketches on its coldest canvases. Tethys, another of Saturn's icy moons, is scarred by a colossal canyon called Ithaca Chasma that stretches nearly 3/4 of the way around its globe. This immense tectonic trench is astounding in scale, reaching 60 miles wide and several miles deep, dwarfing Earth's Grand Canyon into insignificance. It is believed that as Tethys froze solid billions of years ago, its watery interior expanded, just as water expands into ice in a freezer, causing the moon's already hardened outer shell to crack and split open to relieve the incredible pressure. Ithaca Chasma is effectively a giant stretch mark from the moon's tumultuous birth. a frozen, silent testament to the incredible forces of expansion that shaped these icy worlds long before they settled into their current, quiet slumber. For years, astronomers were puzzled by wispy terrain seen on Saturn's moon Dione, which turned out to be immense, bright ice cliffs. When Voyager first flew by, these features looked like vague, painted streaks of white against Dione's darker cratered plains, leading to many mysteries about their nature. It wasn't until the Cassini spacecraft arrived decades later, with sharper eyes, that these wisps were revealed to be colossal tectonic fractures, enormous canyons where the crust had split apart, exposing brilliantly clean, reflective ice on cliff faces that are hundreds of meters high. They are grand, shining scars that catch the distant sunlight, showing that even this relatively small, quiet moon has experienced dramatic geological upheavals in its past, leaving behind majestic, glittering monuments that now stand silently in the vacuum. Saturn's second largest moon, Rhea, may have once possessed its own tenuous ring system, a rare feature for a moon. While no definitive rings are visible today, strange measurements taken by spacecraft suggested that debris might be orbiting Rhea, and its equator is marked by a curiously straight line of impacts that could be the scars of ancient ring material that slowly deorbited and crashed down over millions of years. If true, it would mean Rhea once had a delicate, glittering halo of its own, a tiny echo of the magnificent rings that circle its parent planet Saturn. Though that halo may be gone now, absorbed into the moon's quiet surface, the possibility reminds us that beauty in the solar system is fleeting and ever-changing, and that many worlds may have worn crowns of ice in their distant, forgotten pasts. Umbriel is the darkest of Uranus's major moons, a shadowy world that reflects very little light, save for one mysterious bright ring on its surface. Orbiting in the frigid depths of the Uranian system, Umbriel is covered in old, dark material, perhaps ancient, complex organic compounds that have been blackened by eons of radiation. Yet, amidst this almost uniform darkness lies the Wunder crater, which features a startlingly bright ring of material at its floor, looking like a glowing fluorescent Cheerio dropped onto a desolate parking lot. It is likely a pristine impact scar where a wayward rock punched through the dark upper crust to reveal pure, clean water ice hidden beneath. It stands as a solitary beacon in the gloom, a stark reminder that brightness often hides just below even the darkest of surfaces. Enceladus is not just icy, but contains a global, salty ocean that makes it one of the most promising places to look for life. The magnificent plumes that jet from its south pole were actually flown through and tasted by the Cassini spacecraft, which detected not just water, but salts, simple organic molecules, and even hints of hydrothermal vents at the seafloor. This means that beneath its frozen white shell, tiny Enceladus is remarkably like a miniature Earth, possessing a warm, chemically rich, salty sea that has likely existed for billions of years. It is a profound realization that a tiny moon drifting so far from the sun's warmth could be cradling a warm, stable oasis in its deep interior, a hidden nursery protected from the harshness of space by miles of solid ice. On Titan, transient features dubbed magic islands sometimes appear in its hydrocarbon seas, only to vanish again later. Radar scans of Titan's large northern seas, Ligeia Mare and Kraken Mare, have occasionally shown bright features that were not there in previous images, sometimes lasting for weeks or months before slowly fading away back into the dark liquid. Scientists speculate these could be anything from rising bubbles of nitrogen gas effervescing like a cosmic soda, to floating rafts of strange organic ices that drift with alien currents before sinking. These phantom islands add a layer of ghostly mystery to Titan's already surreal landscape, showing us a world that is not just a static frozen rock, but a dynamic, shifting place with its own complex and gentle rhythms that we are only just beginning to understand. Many outer planets are surrounded by vast swarms of irregular moons that orbit at immense distances and highly tilted angles. Beyond the neat, orderly inner moons that formed along with the planets, there are huge, chaotic clouds of captured objects that orbit millions of miles away, often taking years to complete a single circuit. These distant attendants are likely ancient comets or asteroids that were snagged by the giant planet's immense gravity long ago, forming a tangled, unruly entourage that surrounds their majestic masters. They drift through the deepest silence of the outer solar system, tiny, lonely specks of rock and ice that serve as a reminder of the immense reach of these giant worlds, whose gravitational influence extends far out into the quiet void, gathering wayward travelers into their permanent fold. Our own moon is slowly shrinking as its interior cools, causing its surface to wrinkle like a drying grape. Though it appears unchanging to us, the moon is still geologically settling, its core slowly losing the heat it has held since its violent formation billions of years ago. As it cools, it contracts, and its rigid outer crust is forced to buckle and break, forming steep, cliff-like ridges known as lobate scarps that can be dozens of feet high and miles long. These adjustments sometimes cause moonquakes, gentle shudders that ripple through the quiet lunar dust, a sign that our silent companion is still comfortably settling into its old age, shifting slightly in its long, deep sleep. Europa features vast regions known as chaos terrain, where the icy landscape appears completely shattered and jumbled. In these areas, it looks as though the solid ice shell has broken apart into massive, drifting rafts that tilted and rotated before freezing back together into a solidified, jagged puzzle. These chaotic regions are compelling evidence of the immense power of the hidden ocean below, suggesting that warm currents sometimes rise up to melt through the crust, temporarily turning solid ground into a slushy, churning mess before the merciless cold of space freezes it solid again. It is a frozen snapshot of a violent moment, a magnificent, tangled landscape that captures the dynamic, restless energy trying to escape from within the moon's deep, watery heart. Uranus's moon, Miranda, has colossal cliffs called Verona Rupes that are estimated to be the tallest in the solar system. These terrifyingly sheer ice faces may drop anywhere from 3 to 12 miles straight down, a vertical plunge that dwarfs anything on Earth. Because Miranda's gravity is so incredibly low, if you were to fall from the top of this cliff, it might take you over 10 minutes to reach the bottom, drifting down in a slow, dreamlike descent. It is a landscape of pure, unmodified drama, a testament to the intense, poorly understood geological violence that must have once gripped this tiny world, leaving behind scars of breathtaking scale that now stand perfectly still in the silent, frozen vacuum. Jupiter's moon, Callisto, may have the oldest surface, but it also likely harbors a hidden ocean, much deeper than Europa's. Unlike Europa, whose ocean is near the surface and actively reshaping the ice, Callisto's ocean is thought to be buried much deeper, beneath a thick, rigid, and ancient crust that hasn't moved in billions of years. This deep ocean would be one of the quietest, most isolated places in the entire solar system, completely cut off from the surface above. A dark, eternal sea locked away beneath layer upon layer of rock and ice. It is a secret held tight by an ancient world, a reminder that even the most geologically dead-looking moons might be hiding profound mysteries deep within their silent, untroubled interiors. Saturn's moon Daphnis orbits inside the Keeler gap of the rings and creates waves as it passes by. This tiny moon is another gravitational shepherd, but it doesn't just clear a path. Its gravity also tugs on the edges of the rings it passes between, raising vertical waves of icy particles that ripple outward. As Daphnis races along its orbit, these waves travel with it, creating intricate scalloped patterns on the ring edges that look remarkably like the wake of a small boat traveling through a perfectly still, glittering lake. It is a beautiful display of celestial fluid dynamics, where a tiny moon gently sculpts the vast sea of ice particles around it, leaving a fleeting, delicate trail of order in its silent wake. Amalthea, one of Jupiter's small inner moons, is the reddest object in the solar system, even redder than Mars. While Mars owes its color to iron rust, tiny Amalthea is likely coated in a rich, deep layer of sulfur poured out by its giant volcanic neighbor, Io. Orbiting incredibly close to Jupiter, it acts like a small, silent sponge, sweeping up the colorful debris that drifts inward from Io's ceaseless eruptions. Over millions of years, this constant, gentle rain of volcanic ash has painted the small, potato-shaped moon a brilliant, intense crimson, turning it into a vibrant jewel that circles rapidly in the harsh radiation belts of the giant planet. It is a beautiful example of how worlds in our solar system interact, with one moon quietly wearing the cast-off colors of another, forever bound together in their complex gravitational dance. Saturn's moons Janus and Epimetheus share practically the same orbit and engage in a delicate, never-ending celestial do-si-do. Every 4 years, the inner moon slowly catches up to the outer one, but instead of colliding, their mutual gravity gently causes them to swap places. The inner moon gains a tiny bit of energy and moves higher, while the outer moon loses energy and drops lower, effectively trading orbits in a grand, silent pirouette that has likely been going on for billions of years. It is perhaps the most polite and graceful interaction in the solar system, a perfectly choreographed exchange where two worlds graciously step aside for one another, forever sharing their path around the ringed planet without ever truly touching. Earth occasionally captures mini-moons, small asteroids that loop around our planet for a few months before wandering back out into the solar system. While we think of our moon as our only solitary companion, Earth's gravity sometimes acts like a temporary harbor for weary travelers from the asteroid belt. These car-sized rocks might spend a year or so performing complex, looping orbits around us, unnoticed by all but the most dedicated astronomers, before eventually drifting back out into the Sun's independent orbit. These fleeting visitors remind us that our planet is not entirely alone, but is a busy junction in space, briefly hosting silent, temporary guests that stop by for a quiet visit before continuing their endless, lonely journeys through the dark. Titan's vast equatorial regions are covered in immense dunes that look like deserts on Earth, but they are not made of sand. These towering dunes, some reaching hundreds of feet high and stretching for countless miles, are composed of dark, coarse hydrocarbon grains. Essentially, tiny frozen bits of plastic that have rained down from the thick orange sky over eons. Driven by Titan's gentle slow-motion winds, these alien grains pile up into familiar rippling shapes that perfectly mimic the great sand seas of the Sahara or Arabia. It is a mesmerizing convergence of form across vastly different worlds, showing that the laws of nature will sculpt similar, majestic landscapes, whether the materials are rocky grains under a blazing sun or frozen organic particles under the dim, hazy light of Saturn. Uranus's moon Ariel has the brightest and likely youngest surface of all Uranian moons, marked by massive canyon systems. Much like a smaller, icier version of Mars, Ariel is crisscrossed by immense rift valleys where its crust has pulled apart, with floors that appear to have been smoothed over by the flow of some ancient, viscous, icy material. This suggests that in its past, Ariel might have experienced cryovolcanism, where a slushy mixture of ammonia and water ice erupted from its warm interior to pave over old craters and fill in the lowlands. Today, it is a silent, gleaming world of stark contrasts, its bright, smooth valley floors standing out against older, pitted highlands, a frozen testament to a time when this distant, cold moon was geologically alive. Neptune's moon Proteus is one of the largest irregularly shaped objects in the solar system, a world that almost became a sphere. Proteus is roughly box-shaped, a heavily cratered, battered lump of dark ice and rock that is right on the borderline of being massive enough for its own gravity to pull it into a round shape. It represents a fascinating limit in planetary science, a frozen moment of almost that has persisted for billions of years. It orbits silently in the gloom near Neptune, a giant cosmic building block that never quite finished its journey to becoming a fully formed spherical moon, remaining instead a magnificent, rugged monument to the chaotic early days of formation. Jupiter's faint, gossamer ring system is constantly replenished by dust kicked up from its small inner moons. Unlike Saturn's massive, icy rings, Jupiter's are made of fine, dark dust that would quickly spiral into the planet if it weren't being replaced. Tiny moons like Metis and Adrastea orbit right within these rings, and as they are pelted by micrometeoroids from deep space, they release puffs of fresh dust that drift away to join the ring. These small moons are slowly, silently sacrificing themselves to maintain Jupiter's subtle halo, their very substance being ground down over eons to create fleeting bands of delicate beauty around the giant king of planets. Far beyond Saturn's main rings lies the immense Phoebe ring, a vast, nearly invisible, diffuse torus of dust. This colossal ring is so huge that if it were visible from Earth, it would appear twice the size of our full moon in the sky. It is composed of tiny, dark particles cast off by the distant retrograde moon Phoebe, which drift slowly inward towards Saturn over millions of years. Astonishingly, many of these particles eventually strike the leading face of the moon Iapetus, which orbits much further in, contributing to its strange dark hemisphere. It is a grand, invisible conveyor belt of cosmic dust, connecting widely separated moons in a vast, silent cycle of material transfer across millions of miles of empty space. Our moon has mascons, or mass concentrations, hidden beneath its largest impact basins that create uneven gravity. These are dense regions of solidified lava or uplifted mantle rock that sit below the dusty grey surface, lurking like heavy, buried anchors. Their extra gravitational pull is strong enough to disturb the orbits of spacecraft that circle the moon. eventually causing them to become unstable and crash, if not actively corrected. They are the silent ghosts of ancient, violent impacts, invisible heavyweights that still exert their influence from beneath the ground, ensuring that even empty space around the Moon has a varied and complex topography of invisible forces. Charon is so massive compared to its parent Pluto that the two actually orbit a point in empty space outside of Pluto itself. In almost every other moon system, the center of gravity lies deep inside the larger parent planet. But Pluto and Charon are more like equal partners in a binary system. This barycenter, the invisible pivot point of their dance, is a fixed location in the void between them that they both faithfully circle. It is a unique relationship in our solar system, a perfectly balanced waltz of two icy dwarfs who have found an equilibrium in the cold dark, neither one truly the master of the other, forever spinning around a shared empty center. Io doesn't just have volcanoes. It also generates a powerful electrical current as it travels through Jupiter's magnetic field. As Io orbits, it acts like an electrical generator, creating a massive current of millions of amps that flows between the Moon and Jupiter's upper atmosphere. This invisible flux tube of energy creates a permanent, glowing auroral spot in Jupiter's polar regions that rotates in perfect sync with Io's orbital position. It is a spectacular, silent connection, an ethereal umbilical cord of pure energy that binds the small, fiery Moon to its giant host, lighting up the skies of a world nearly 500,000 kilometers away. Ganymede's surface is a complex mixture of very old, dark, cratered regions and younger, brighter, grooved terrain. The dark areas are some of the oldest surfaces in the solar system, preserving a record of ancient impacts, while the bright grooves are gigantic parallel ridges and troughs that look like they were raked across the Moon by a cosmic comb. These grooves were likely formed by tectonic forces that stretched and fractured the icy crust long ago, creating a beautiful, intricate pattern of bright scars that wrap around the Moon. It gives Ganymede the appearance of a patchwork world, a giant jigsaw puzzle of disparate geological eras, frozen together into one majestic, diverse sphere. Saturn's moon Tethys has two tiny companions, Telesto and Calypso, that share its orbit in stable gravitational pockets. These small Trojan moons sit exactly 60 degrees ahead of and 60 degrees behind Tethys, trapped in stable regions known as Lagrange points. They are like loyal, silent guards that forever escort the larger Moon on its endless journey around Saturn, never getting any closer or drifting any further away. It is a wonderfully orderly arrangement, showing that gravity can create safe harbors in the emptiness of space where small worlds can find a permanent, stable home, drifting peacefully in perfect lockstep with their larger siblings. In the very distant future, Mars's moon Phobos will likely break apart to form a spectacular ring around the red planet. Phobos is slowly spiraling inward toward Mars with every orbit, and in about 50 million years, it will reach a point where Martian gravity will simply pull it apart. Instead of a single catastrophic impact, it is expected that the loose rubble pile of a moon will gently unzip into a stream of rocky debris, encircling Mars in a dusty, dark ring that may last for millions of years. It is a beautiful, albeit destructive, future destiny, a final transformation from a lonely, lumpy moon into a grand celestial crown that will briefly adorn the aging, rusty planet. Oberon, the outermost major moon of Uranus, features a lonely mountain that rises steeply from the floor of a large crater, This unnamed peak stands nearly 7 miles high, taller than Mauna Kea on Earth, rising solitary and majestic from the deepest point of a seemingly flat basin. It is a mysterious sentinel on the edge of the Uranian system, its origins unknown, perhaps a central rebound from a massive ancient impact, or a cryovolcanic peak that erupted after the crater formed. It stands in absolute silence and eternal darkness, a towering monument on a cold, distant world that very few human eyes have ever even indirectly beheld. The Kuiper Belt, the vast field of icy debris beyond Neptune, is surprisingly crowded with moons. Many of the dwarf planets discovered there, like Eris, Haumea, and Makemake, have their own small moon systems. Haumea even has 2, and is itself shaped like a spinning rugby ball due to its rapid rotation. This reveals that moon-forming events, likely ancient slow-motion collisions in the deep freeze of the outer solar system, were incredibly common. It paints a picture of the distant reaches, not as a lonely void, but as a place rich with complex, small-scale families of worlds, each silently accompanying the other through the long, slow years of the far outer orbits. Our moon is very slowly drifting away from Earth at about the same speed that human fingernails grow. Every year, the moon moves about 1.5 inches farther into the void, stealing a tiny bit of Earth's rotational energy to boost its own orbit higher. This long goodbye has been happening for billions of years. In the distant past, the moon was titanic in our sky, and billions of years from now, it will be too small to ever totally eclipse the sun. It is a poignant reminder of the deep, slow timescales of the cosmos, a gentle, imperceptible parting between 2 oldest friends that will continue long after we are gone. Despite its thick atmosphere, the surface of Titan is incredibly calm, with winds that barely stir the alien air. Sojourners on Titan would experience a perpetual, hazy stillness, with surface winds usually blowing gently at less than 1 meter per second. The vast dunes that cover the equator are likely only moved during rare, powerful equinoctial storms that might happen only once every 15 Earth years. For the most part, Titan is a world of profound, heavy silence, where the dense orange fog hangs, almost motionless, over vast dark plains, creating perhaps the most peaceful and hushed landscape in the entire solar system. Callisto boasts the Valhalla Basin, a colossal multi-ring impact structure that looks like a frozen ripple in a pond. Stretching nearly 2,000 miles across, Valhalla is not a deep crater, but a series of concentric bright ridges spreading out from a central point. It likely formed when a massive object struck Callisto while its interior was still relatively warm and soft, causing the icy surface to shudder and ripple outward before freezing solid forever. It is a magnificent fossil of a cataclysmic event, a perfectly preserved splash pattern on a planetary scale that has remained unchanged for billions of years, a silent, icy masterpiece of impact art. Saturn's tiny moon Polydeuces acts as a wanderer, drifting back and forth around a stable point near its larger sibling Dione. Like Telesto and Calypso for Tethys, Polydeuces is a Trojan moon, but it has a uniquely large wander zone. It doesn't just sit still in its gravitational sweet spot. It slowly drifts widely back and forth around it, like a pendulum swinging in extreme slow motion over the course of years. It is a playful, restless spirit in the otherwise orderly Saturnian system, tethered by gravity, but given a long leash to explore its little segment of orbit, forever dancing around its invisible home in the void. Triton's surface features strange, bubbly landscapes known as cantaloupe terrain that exist nowhere else in the solar system. Instead of typical craters or smooth plains, vast stretches of Neptune's largest moon are covered in a mesmerizing network of closely packed depressions and crisscrossing ridges that look remarkably like the skin of a giant melon. This peculiar texture is thought to be formed by complex cycles of icy volcanism and tectonic shifting, where the nitrogen-rich crust has repeatedly melted, bubbled up from below, and refrozen over millions of years. It is a truly alien geology, a vast, wrinkled skin on a frozen world that orbits backwards at the very edge of our planetary neighborhood. The existence of such a unique landscape on a moon so far from the sun is a quiet reminder that every world, no matter how distant or cold, has its own singular way of aging, wearing a face that is distinctly its own in the grand gallery of celestial bodies. Io's thin atmosphere literally collapses and falls to the ground as solid frost every time it passes into Jupiter's majestic shadow. Because Io is so volcanically active, it maintains a tenuous, wispy atmosphere of sulfur dioxide gas that clings to the moon while it basks in sunlight. However, every Earth day, Io travels behind the colossal bulk of Jupiter for about 2 hours, plunging into a deep, frigid eclipse where temperatures instantly plummet. In this sudden, profound darkness, the atmosphere freezes solid and snows out onto the surface, leaving the moon practically airless until it re-emerges into the sunlight, where the frost immediately sublimates back into gas. It is a rhythmic, daily resurrection of an entire atmosphere, a moon that holds its breath in the cold dark and exhales only when it returns to the warmth of the light. While Phobos is rugged and battered, Mars's smaller moon Deimos is surprisingly smooth, seemingly covered in a thick blanket of dust. Deimos looks less like a cratered rock and more like a faceted jewel that has been heavily softened by time, its sharp edges worn down and its craters filled in. This smoothing is likely due to a deep layer of regolith, fine space dust created by eons of micrometeoroid impacts that has slowly drifted downhill over millions of years to fill in every hollow and valley. Because Deimos has such incredibly low gravity, this dust settles with agonizing slowness, creating a landscape that appears soft, muted, and almost velvety from a distance. It is a quiet, sleeping world that has gently buried its violent past under a deep, unbroken layer of cosmic silence. Pluto's 4 tiny outer moons, Styx, Nix, Kerberos, and Hydra, tumble chaotically rather than rotating steadily. Unlike most moons that keep one face politely turned toward their parent, these small, icy shards are caught in the complex, shifting gravitational fields of the central Pluto-Charon binary pair. This constantly changing pull means they never settle into a rhythm, but instead tumble unpredictably end over end as they orbit, like erratically thrown dice that never stop rolling. If you stood on one of these restless worlds, the sun might rise and then immediately set again, or pause in the sky for days. It is a corner of the solar system where time and direction have no fixed meaning, a playful, eternal tumble through the cold, quiet dark of the Kuiper Belt. Saturn's moon. Rhea possesses a remarkably tenuous atmosphere rich in oxygen and carbon dioxide. Though it is billions of times thinner than Earth's air, this fragile exosphere was a surprising discovery around a frozen, geologically dead moon. It is maintained not by life, but by high-energy particles from Saturn's magnetic field slamming into Rhea's water ice surface, chemically splitting the ice molecules apart and releasing tiny puffs of oxygen that hang briefly around the moon before drifting away. It is a ghostly, non-biological echo of our own life-giving atmosphere, a silent reminder that the ingredients we associate with vitality can sometimes arise from purely physical processes in the deepest, coldest reaches of space. Jupiter's moon Ganymede is fully differentiated, meaning its insides have separated into distinct layers like a miniature Earth. In its youth, Ganymede was likely hot enough for its heaviest materials to sink to the center, while lighter ices rose to the surface. This means it now possesses a dense, iron-rich core wrapped in a rocky mantle, all hidden beneath a thick outer shell of ice. This layered, ordered interior stands in stark contrast to its neighbor Callisto, which is a more jumbled mixture of rock and ice throughout. It shows us that even sibling moons, born in the same region of space, can have vastly different life stories, with some maturing into complex, layered worlds, while others remain pristine, undifferentiated fossils from the dawn of the solar system. Deep beneath Titan's organic rich surface and rocky sea floors likely lies another hidden ocean, this one exceedingly salty and dense. While Titan is famous for its surface lakes of methane, gravity measurements by passing spacecraft hint at a much deeper global ocean of liquid water, mixed with ammonia and dissolved salts buried dozens of miles down. This subterranean sea might be as salty as the Dead Sea on Earth, a dense, briny layer sandwiched between high-pressure ices. It means Titan is effectively a double ocean world, one possessing strange, alien seas of fuel on its surface under an orange sky, and a pitch-black, heavy ocean of water hidden far below, a world of deep layers and deeper mysteries waiting silently in the cold. Saturn's two-toned moon Iapetus has an incredibly slow rotation, with a single day lasting more than 79 Earth days. Because it orbits so far from Saturn, its tidal locking has resulted in an agonizingly long cycle of day and night if you were on the surface. The distant, diminished sun would take weeks to crawl lazily across the black sky, casting shadows that barely seem to move from one day to the next. This extreme slowness contributes to its strange temperature differences, allowing the dark side to absorb heat over weeks, while the bright side remains frozen. It is a world of profound patience, where time seems almost to have stopped, and the passing of a single day is a season unto itself. The tiger stripes near Enceladus' south pole are significantly warmer than the rest of the moon, glowing with internal heat. These four prominent parallel fractures, each about 80 miles long, are the active vents for the moon's famous geysers, while the rest of Enceladus' surface is unimaginably cold, hovering near -300 degrees Fahrenheit. These cracks radiate a surprising amount of heat from the subterranean ocean below, appearing in infrared scans like glowing ribbons wrapped around the moon's pole. They are the warm arteries of a tiny, frozen world, visible evidence of the vibrant energy that keeps its hidden heart liquid and alive in a region of space where everything else is frozen solid. Uranus's extremely thin epsilon ring is kept narrow and defined by two shepherd moons, Cordelia and Ophelia. Much like Pan and Daphnis at Saturn, these two small, dark moons orbit on either side of Uranus's brightest ring, acting as gravitational guardians. Cordelia pushes errant particles from the inside, while Ophelia herds them from the outside, their combined influence squeezing the ring into a sharp, well-defined band. Without their constant, silent vigilance, the Epsilon ring would likely spread out and dissipate into nothingness over a few million years. They are the unsung, unseen workers of the Uranian system, tirelessly maintaining the delicate architecture of the rings in the dark depths of the outer solar system. Saturn's spongy moon, Hyperion, is so incredibly porous that it is comprised of nearly 40% empty space. This peculiar, potato-shaped moon has an incredibly low density, similar to that of a loose pile of rubble or fresh snow. Its surface is covered in deep, sharp-edged craters that give it the distinct appearance of a giant cosmic sponge or a wasp's nest. Impacts on the Hyperion don't just make craters, they compress the surface material, punching deep holes into the moon's fluffy, icy body without throwing up much debris. It is a fragile, airy drifter, a world that is almost more void than substance, floating lightly through the complex gravity fields of the Saturnian system. Our own moon actually possesses a faint, comet-like tail made of sodium atoms that streams out behind it. Though we think of the moon as having no atmosphere, it is constantly bombarded by solar wind and micrometeoroids that kick up individual atoms from its regolith. These atoms, particularly sodium, are then pushed away by the pressure of sunlight, forming a long, invisible tail that stretches thousands of miles into space away from the sun. During a new moon, this tenuous stream of metallic atoms can sometimes even brush against the Earth's upper atmosphere. It is a beautiful, hidden feature of our closest companion, a ghostly veil that it perpetually drags behind it as it circles our world. The geysers on Neptune's moon Triton do not just spew gas, but also carry dark, dusty material that streaks the landscape. When the faint sun warms volatile nitrogen ice near Triton's surface, it builds up pressure until it bursts through the overlying crust, carrying dark subsurface particles with it purely by accident. These plumes can rise 5 miles high into the thin atmosphere before being carried away by high-altitude winds, eventually settling to form long, dark streaks on the pinkish ice below. They look like wispy smoke signals frozen onto the surface, marking the direction of the prevailing winds on a world that is otherwise frozen in time at the very edge of the solar system. Jupiter's moon Europa may have transient water vapor plumes that are far more elusive and quieter than those on Enceladus. Unlike the constant, roaring jets of Enceladus, Europa's plumes appear to be rare, sporadic events, perhaps only occurring when tidal stresses on its icy shell are at their peak. The Hubble Space Telescope has occasionally caught faint, ghostly hints of water vapor rising above the moon's limb, only for them to vanish when looked for again. It suggests Europa is a deeply secretive world, only occasionally offering fleeting glimpses of its hidden ocean before sealing itself back up, keeping its greatest treasures safely locked away beneath miles of protective monolithic ice. Saturn is orbited by vast groups of distant, irregular moons that are categorized by their suspected ancestral origins, Norse, Inuit, and Gallic. These far-flung clusters of small moons likely originated from larger parent bodies that were shattered by collisions eons ago, leaving behind families of debris that share similar orbits and colors. The Norse group is by far the largest, a sprawling cloud of retrograde moons named after giants from mythology, all drifting backwards in the deepest reaches of Saturn's gravity well. These thematic families are silent echoes of ancient celestial dynasties. broken lineages that still travel together through the endless dark, forever bound by their shared history of destruction and rebirth. Callisto orbits just outside of Jupiter's main, intense radiation belts, making it perhaps the safest harbor in the Jovian system, while moons like Io and Europa are bathed in lethal levels of radiation trapped by Jupiter's magnetic field. Tranquil Callisto drifts along in a comparatively quiet zone. Its surface, though ancient and battered, is a place of relative stillness and safety compared to the energetic fury of its inner siblings. Because of this, many visionaries dream that if humans ever travel to the Jupiter system, Callisto will be our first foothold, a calm and steady outpost from which we can safely observe the magnificent, terrifying beauty of the giant planet and its more volatile moons. While Phobos is destined to crash into Mars, its smaller sibling Deimos is slowly sailing away into the endless void. Just as our moon drifts from Earth, Deimos is gradually stealing rotational energy from Mars and spiraling outward. Its orbit is growing larger by millimeters every year, a painfully slow retreat from the planet it has circled for billions of years. Eons from now, long after Phobos has met its fiery end, Deimos will eventually break free from Martian gravity entirely, becoming a lonely asteroid once more, destined to wander the cold expanse of the solar system forever. It is a tale of two siblings with opposite fates, one returning to the ancestral home, the other leaving it behind for the grand unknown. Titan's methane rain falls incredibly slowly due to the moon's low gravity and thick atmosphere. A rainstorm on Titan is nothing like one on Earth. The raindrops can grow to be huge, perhaps twice the size of terrestrial ones, but they would fall with a mesmerizing, dreamlike slowness, drifting down like snowflakes rather than plummeting. Because they are made of liquid methane, they would also fall in absolute silence, landing softly on the damp hydrocarbon dunes without a splash. To stand in a Titanian downpour would be to witness a surreal, slow-motion ballet of alien weather, a gentle, persistent drenching on a hushed and hazy world. Neptune's distant moon, Nereid, changes drastically in brightness as it follows its immense looping orbit. Because its path takes it so far from Neptune and then swings it back so close, Nereid presents different faces and angles to the distant sun and to observers on Earth. Sometimes it appears relatively bright, and other times it fades significantly into the background gloom, making it a notoriously difficult object to track consistently. It is like a flickering candle at the edge of the solar system, a small, unsteady light that pulses slowly over the course of its lonely, year-long journey through the outer darkness. There is a beautiful long-term vision shared by many nations of establishing a permanent moon village on our own lunar companion. This concept is not just of a scientific base, but a quiet, enduring community where humanity can learn to live off another world, using lunar soil for building and ancient water ice hidden in polar shadow craters for life support. It represents the next great step in our relationship with the moon, transforming it from a distant object of worship and wonder into a second home, a place where human lights might one day twinkle softly on the dark portion of its crescent, looking back at the bright blue Earth that started it all. NASA's upcoming Dragonfly mission aims to land a robotic rotorcraft on Titan to soar through its dense, hazy skies. Unlike traditional rovers that slowly crawl across alien soil, Dragonfly will be a true explorer of the air, taking advantage of Titan's low gravity and thick atmosphere to fly between different geological locations. it will spend its days resting on the frigid hydrocarbon dunes, recharging its batteries with nuclear warmth before taking off to hop miles away to new unexplored regions, effectively turning a single landing into dozens of separate missions. It is a magnificent dream of future exploration, a silent, mechanical dragonfly that will one day buzz quietly through the orange twilight of a distant moon, searching for the chemical precursors of life in a world that has waited billions of years for its first winged visitor. Deep inside Ganymede, incredible pressures might create a club sandwich structure of alternating layers of ice and liquid water. While we often think of ice just floating on water, at the unimaginable pressures found deep inside Jupiter's largest moon, water can freeze into exotic, dense forms of ice that actually sink. Scientists theorize that Ganymede's interior might be a vast layered cake where sheets of these heavy, high-pressure ices are separated by distinct, isolated oceans of liquid water stacked one on top of another. It is a mind-bending concept of subterranean geology, a complex hidden world where alien seas are stacked like diverse floors in a grand abyssal skyscraper, each one potentially completely sealed off from the others forever. Our moon's far side has a much thicker crust than the near side, which is why it looks so strikingly different. When we look at the moon, we see the familiar dark seas or maria, which are vast plains of ancient basaltic lava that flowed into low basins. However, the far side is almost entirely rugged, bright highlands with very few of these dark spots. This is likely because the crust on the far side is significantly thicker, making it much harder for molten rock from the deep interior to ever punch through to the surface, no matter how large the impact. It means our moon is lopsided in its very bones, presenting a thin, scarred face to us while keeping its thicker, tougher armored shield turned permanently toward the depths of outer space. Recent gravity measurements suggest that even Mimas, the Death Star moon, might be hiding a stealth ocean beneath its battered shell. For years, Mimas was thought to be frozen solid, a simple chunk of dead ice and rock, but subtle wobbles in its rotation detected by the Cassini spacecraft hint at something sloshing around inside. If this ocean exists, it is likely very young in cosmic terms, perhaps formed recently by tidal heating that hasn't yet had time to melt all the way through to the surface. It would mean that even the most unsuspecting, heavily cratered worlds might be secretly harboring warm, liquid hearts, quietly nurturing huge volumes of water just beneath their desolate, frozen exteriors. Charon features an immense canyon system called Argo Chasma that is one of the deepest and longest in the known solar system. This colossal gash in Charon's icy crust is estimated to be roughly 4 times as deep as Earth's Grand Canyon and stretches for hundreds of miles across the small moon's surface. It likely formed when Charon's internal ocean froze and expanded billions of years ago, literally bursting the moon at its seams like an overfilled water balloon. Today, it stands as a magnificent, silent testament to that ancient expansion, a sheer walled abyss that plunges into absolute darkness, an eternal scar left by the growing pains of a small, icy world at the edge of our neighborhood. Saturn's rings are full of tiny, invisible moonlets that reveal their presence only by creating propeller-shaped disturbances in the surrounding ice. These objects are too small to be officially counted as moons, perhaps only a few 100 meters across, yet they are large enough for their gravity to clear small, partial gaps in the dense ring material. As they orbit, they create bright, wing-like dashes in the rings ahead of and behind them. looking remarkably like the blades of an old-fashioned airplane propeller spinning in the vast sheet of ice. They are the hidden, multitudinous, bustling crowd of the rings. Thousands of tiny, nameless worlds that we can only see by the delicate, fleeting wakes they leave as they push through the grandest structure in the solar system. Enceladus is not just spraying water. It is spraying water that has interacted with hot rock, a surefire sign of hydrothermal vents. By analyzing the tiny silica nanograins found in Saturn's E-ring, scientists realized they could only have formed where very hot water, nearing boiling temperatures, was dissolving rock deep on the moon's seafloor. This means Enceladus likely has active, dark chimneys on its ocean bottom, very similar to the Lost City vents found in Earth's deepest Atlantic trenches. It is staggering to think that in the freezing darkness of the outer solar system, there is a tiny moon with a warm, chemically rich seafloor that might be one of the most hospitable places for life we have ever found off Earth. Uranus's moon aerial features broad, smooth valley floors that look like they were paved by massive glaciers of exotic ice. These flow features appear to have moved slowly and heavily, filling in older craters and smoothing out the rough, jumbled bottoms of its immense canyon systems. Unlike Earth's water glaciers, these were likely made of a sluggish, viscous mixture of ammonia and water ice that oozed from the interior millions of years ago, like incredibly slow-moving lava. They are now frozen solid in the extreme cold of the Uranian realm. Silent, immobile rivers of ice that preserve the memory of a time when Ariel was warm enough to let its interior flow out and reshape its own face. Miranda's strange landscape includes 3 gigantic, unmatched features called coronae that look like raceways or thumbprints. These immense, roughly varying oval regions are marked by concentric belts of ridges and valleys looking totally different from the heavily cratered terrain that surrounds them. They might be places where giant plumes of warm ice rose up from deep inside the moon, causing the surface to buckle and fold in on itself in complex patterns before freezing again. They look like giant, mysterious stamps pressed onto the moon's surface by a cosmic hand, unique geological signatures that have no equal on any other world we have ever visited. Without our moon acting as a steadying anchor, Earth might have suffered chaotic wobbles that could have prevented advanced life. The moon's substantial gravity acts as a stabilizing flywheel for Earth's rotational axis, keeping our tilt relatively constant over millions of years. Without this steadying hand, Earth might have tumbled erratically over eons, sometimes tilting all the way over so that the poles face the sun, causing catastrophic extreme climate swings that would have made the development of complex life incredibly difficult. We owe our long, stable, and predictable seasons to the silent, constant presence of our silvery companion, holding us steady as we spin through the emptiness. Triton's orbit is slowly decaying, and as it gets closer to Neptune in the distant future, its volcanism will likely go wild. Currently, Triton is a very cold world with relatively mild geyser activity, but as Neptune's gravity pulls it ever tighter over billions of years, the tidal heating will increase exponentially. Before it eventually breaks apart, it might enter a phase of extreme, hyperactive volcanism, where its entire surface is melted and refaced, turning it into a slushy, churning water world for a brief cosmic moment. It is destined for a spectacular final act, a grand, fiery finale of resurfacing, before it ultimately dissolves to become a majestic ring around its blue master. Many of Jupiter's small outer moons are likely the shattered remnants of larger moons that were destroyed long ago. The sheer number of these tiny, irregular satellites, all following similar orbits, suggests they are shrapnel from ancient celestial collisions. In the chaotic early days of the solar system, larger moons may have smashed into each other or been struck by passing comets, blasting themselves into dozens of smaller fragments that continue to travel together in loose families. They are a drifting graveyard of former worlds, silent, rocky shards that hold the memory of violent events that played out in the darkness billions of years before human eyes ever looked up to see them. The dark regions on Pluto, like the whale-shaped Cthulhu macula, may be ancient beds of tholins that have been undisturbed since the dawn of the solar system. While the bright heart of Pluto is young nitrogen ice, these immense dark reddish patches along the equator are likely incredibly old, covered in complex organic tars that have slowly accumulated from the thin atmosphere over 4 billion years. They are some of the oldest surfaces in the outer solar system, ancient, stable continents of dark red hydrocarbon sludge that stand in stark contrast to the rest of the solar system, contrast to the churning, bright glaciers nearby. They remind us that even on active dwarf planets, there are quiet corners that have sat in undisturbed frozen silence almost since the very beginning of time. Saturn's moon, Iapetus, gets its dark material not just from space, but strengthens it through a process called thermal segregation. Once a little bit of dark dust lands on Iapetus, that area absorbs more sunlight and warms up slightly more than the surrounding bright ice. This tiny bit of extra warmth causes the water ice in that area to sublimate and migrate away to colder areas, leaving behind only the dark, crusty residue, which then gets even hotter and darker. It is a slow-motion runaway process that has taken billions of years to paint half the moon black, a self-reinforcing cycle of shadow creating more shadow in the deeper, colder reaches of the solar system. Strange, labyrinthine terrains on Titan near its poles look like dried-up lake beds, suggesting its seas once covered a larger area. These features, which look incredibly similar to limestone karst terrain on Earth found in places like Puerto Rico or Vietnam, are likely areas where liquid methane has dissolved the icy bedrock over millions of years, leaving behind a maze of steep hills and valleys. The fact that some now appear dry suggests that Titan's climate changes over very long timescales, with its alien sea slowly advancing and retreating over eons, leaving behind silent, sculpted ghost landscapes as a memory of where the tides once rested. The Cassini mission ended by plunging into Saturn specifically to protect moons like Enceladus and Titan from accidental contamination. Because these moons are so promising for potential life, scientists could not risk an old, unsterilized spacecraft eventually crashing into them and perhaps introducing hardy Earth bacteria to a pristine alien ecosystem. The spacecraft's final act was a deliberate, sacrificial dive into Saturn's atmosphere, where it burned up like a meteor, ensuring it would never harm the fragile, icy Edens it had spent over a decade exploring. It was a noble, final gesture of respect for these quiet worlds, leaving them as pure and untouched as they were when we first found them. Some of Uranus's small inner moons, like Cupid and Belinda, are on orbits so tightly packed that they will likely collide in the future. The Uranian system is tightly wound and somewhat chaotic over long timescales, meaning the orbits of these small, densely packed moons are slowly evolving and crossing. In a few million years, a mere blink in cosmic time, two of them may meet in a spectacular silent collision that could create a new ring or merge them into a single, larger moon. It is a reminder that the solar system is not a finished, static painting, but a dynamic, ever-changing sculpture that is still being slowly chiseled by the invisible force of gravity. Earth may once have had two moons that eventually merged in a slow-motion collision to form the one we have today. Some theories suggest that the giant impact that formed our moon actually created two large bodies, one smaller than the other, which shared the same orbit for millions of years. Eventually, the smaller moonlet may have gently drifted onto the far side of the larger one, splattering itself across the surface and forming the strangely thick, mountainous highlands we see there today. It is a fascinating thought that our solitary companion might actually be two worlds fused together, a silent, unified monument to a long-forgotten cosmic embrace. The official definition of a moon is surprisingly vague, as there is no strict lower size limit for what counts. While we easily recognize colossal Titan or Ganymede as moons, the line gets blurry as we find smaller and smaller rocks orbiting giant planets. Saturn has millions of moonlets in its rings that are the size of houses, and billions the size of pebbles. Are they all moons, or just ring particles? The universe does not care for our neat human categories. It simply fills the void with objects of every conceivable size, from grains of sand to planet-sized giants, all obeying the same silent laws of gravity as they circle their varied masters in the dark. Moons are seemingly almost universal companions, found orbiting everything from giant planets to tiny asteroids and distant dwarf worlds. As we have looked deeper into our solar system, we have found that being alone is the exception, not the rule. Almost every major type of body we have found has attendants. This tells us that the dance of gravity is a fundamental part of how the cosmos is built, that matter inevitably seeks out other matter to travel with through the void. It is a deeply comforting final thought that in the vast, seemingly infinite emptiness of space, very few worlds truly have to journey through the dark entirely on their own. And so, our journey through the tranquil and varied world of solar system moons comes to a gentle close. These varied worlds, from the smallest drifting rock in the asteroid belt to the grandest ocean-bearing Titan around Jupiter, all share the same silent fate, bound forever to the majestic masters they circle in the dark. They are the quiet offspring of the solar system's chaotic youth, now grown into settled, steady companions that watch over the deep reaches of the night. In their endless, looping journeys, they remind us that even in the deepest, coldest voids, there is incredible beauty and a magnificent, persistent order that defies the surrounding emptiness. They do not struggle against the dark. They simply exist within it, ancient and enduring, their cratered faces and icy shells standing as silent monuments to billions of years of quiet perseverance. As you lay here now, safe in the gentle pull of our own familiar world, remember that these countless other moons are out there right this very moment, continuing their silent, majestic dances in the grand ballet of deep space. They require nothing from us but to be witnessed in our dreams, steady, unblinking lights that will continue to circle long after our own short quiet time has passed. Let their immense, slow rhythms sink into your mind, replacing the hurried tempo of the day with the deep, geological slowness of eternal orbits, carrying you away to a place of perfect, untroubled stillness. If you happen to still be awake, that's just fine. There is nothing you need to remember now, nothing you need to do. You can simply follow your breathing and let the images of these distant moons drift by, like quiet lights moving through the dark. And if your eyes are heavy, you can let the stories of solar system moons fade softly into the background and allow yourself to rest. Sleep well. Good night.